Hello, everyone. This is Julie Duke, and I am going to discuss with you human performance technology within corporate training and the analysis of future educational technology training platforms. I approach this in looking at the understanding that um, I would be venturing out to look at training in the corporate setting and how human performance technology um, is growing in understanding with the training aspects. Now, human performance technology may not use training initially when you go in to look at a organization's pitfalls and the improvements that need to be done. But if there are educational trainings, what kind of platforms can we um, build for the future in educational technology? So the purpose of my paper was to look at the different devices, look at platforms, like tools that are needed, evaluating in a learning environment that's a constructionist approach, looking at the ontological aspects of the training and how that all comes together for this finite future in which we are living in. We're looking at the immediate future of all educational technology and how that affects us. And if a corporation needs to train these people at home, we have many people still at home, or new people being hired in businesses to do work at home. How can we train them to the best of our ability as instructional designers, looking at human performance technology, looking at the educational technology provided to us um, to make a client have better outcomes for their organization? So um, we look at the corporate setting and we think about human performance technology, the educational tools needed for working at home, and how do we train our employees if need be. So evolving new educational technology and human performing technology at the social, culture, culture, and adult learning level is crucial for the finite future. Traditional learning approaches in education are just outdated, and this is a challenge for HPT specialists. And um, and it's important to keep relevant in understanding the skills and learning that's needed for training. So we look at educational technology tools and platforms we use today and analyzing the needs to change the procedure for new infrastructure um, with educational technology advancements. It's ever evolving, and as a specialist in human performance technology, we have to understand that we can use things like learning management systems at the corporate level. We can use tools like AR or VR for performance to improve things, and other tools as well. So I look at the constructivist ET platform and through an ontological approach, as you will see in the, the data that I give you. Um, so how does using something like an LMS that we use in K through 12 or higher education, how does that help you in human performance technology in the corporate setting? What I found is much of the data is being tracked on users, like we see Google um, and social media outlets, and how that is used for PR as well as incentives to sell items and so on. So the algorithms written behind these programs are using data that we are very familiar with in targeting what our interests are. So I looked at these things and looking at performance behaviors within an organization in order to look at the desired outcome of improvement, we have to think about the front end analysis. There's back end and front end analysis, and we need to make sure that we understand where we start out and why um, small adjustments could be all you need to do for human performance technology. Um, just the adjustments in the environment, the motivation to work. That's so important. So discussions with the performance technology, with administrative teams, with employees, is all crucial in planning this front end analysis and the performance procedures. So um, if we look at Marshall and Russet, they show us that these barriers included things like environment, incentives, skills, knowledge, motivation. And Harless believed that what caused a performance problem often dictated the solution, and not all causes responded to training. Uh, for a skill of knowledge deficiency, a simple job aid might solve the problem. But when this doesn't happen, where do we turn to? We need to think about training. So I looked further in the information, and systematic and comprehensive approach of the research presented will align with the educational technology, how it relates to the field of HPT, and the training that is necessary for an organization's high performance outcomes to succeed. The next thing I did was I looked at innovative corporate learning environments and how they're the way of the future. We don't know what will be discovered at the keyboard of information in our science and technological worlds. Our workforce mastery skills, environments, or training with job aids will hold for learners for the future. We don't know what's going to be out there, just like in the past, even 300 years ago. And we saw this through the history of educational technology. We had no idea. Our forefathers didn't know that there was going to be computers, and they used, blackboards and chalk, and never in their life would they have thought that we would never be using them again. Um, and almost the pencil is becoming obsolete in learning. So as to learn from our past, we move forward in understanding what our future skills are. Um, Understanding these changes for our future in teaching subjects or skills are reasons to explore new ways to construct learning, educational technology, performance platforms. As we approach different things, there's things like flipped classrooms, gamification, mobile learning, and just-in-time teaching. Knowing the management of synchronous and asynchronous learning is very helpful in today's climate with COVID. Knowing these skills will afford human performance technology specialists the opportunity to be more relevant in today's job market. An example is JIT, which is the just-in-time teaching. Um, Students complete a considerable amount of online work in preparation for an interactive in-person session with an instructor. So you could have employees that need to complete training manuals, but then students submit the work on the JIT assignments electronically, through a platform before the live session. And and that could be in the corporate learning management system. So therefore, they are checked off for doing the hours of training. This is shown in flight and training with U.S. Air and all the flight schooling that's needed for pilots. So the instructor scans the student responses and incorporates insight gleaned from them into the subsequent classroom experience, and um, and it gives them an opportunity to have presentation of the content and interactive activities as well. So looking on to Farrell's 2018 research, learning becomes doing, and applying things like augmented reality and virtual reality training at the corporate level fascinated me. And the argument that newer educational technology like augmented reality uh, and virtual reality is more on the uptrend for teaching corporate workers um, what needs to be learned for the organization. I thought that was fascinating. And Corwin suggests through the eyes of a certified school implementation specialist or through human performance technology specialists that they should make these technological changes. Um, and one example is like error proofing performance through the use of markerless AR, augmented reality. This can provide learners with a virtual coach who helps them overcome the learning curve by providing clear information at the point of need. So you're using this technology to individualize their training. Technologies such as augmented and virtual reality, while initially used more for marketing, advertising, and gaming, can be huge tools for incoming employees. And, you know, as we are working out of our homes and understanding that we have to train these people, this equipment could be used in such a platform, in such a way to train new employees. So HPT specialists have to realize there's some caution that needs to be taken and really understanding this these platforms. Um, Learning becomes doing, as we said before, and when we look at what will you do to help make our learning relevant and an environment supportive and welcoming for everyone, applying AR, VR, um, markerless AR is huge in this in the organizational training. We look at Corwin, and he suggests, or they suggest, through the eyes of a certified school performance, which I had talked about, or the specialists themselves, are are looking at these changes, so we can improve ourselves through error proofing. Um, as I started to talk about, extreme caution needs to happen. The observations of, you know, looking at these tools as in the workforce at the corporate setting, we have to realize extreme care needs to be observed. In these educational settings, um, we have to understand that the tools being introduced, strategic thinking is necessary to consider the ultimate performance. We need to understand that these things are vital, excuse me, for the learning process. And if we do not know how to use them properly, we will have issues. And so HPT specialists really need to take that into consideration as you bring in these tools for learning and changing environments in organizations. It has to also make it more relevant, and you have to be motivated by this technology And in order to be motivated, you have to clearly be taught correctly. And if someone doesn't know how to use it, it just defeats the purpose. Okay, so another thing is wearable technology. Stress levels are issues in some platforms, some organizations, and checking stress in aeronautics, in flight, uh, athletes, in different stress environments. These tools are so crucial in understanding physiological measures and how an employee uh, is measured with stress. So we have sensors now. Um, the use of real-time devices to get responsive information to see if your stress is high. Things like stress loads or heart rates, those are important to understand. So HPT, evidence-based methodology in which to prepare systematic performance deficiencies and opportunities in these emerging new technology devices, give the uh, specialists the science, and allows them to have predictive analysis that is narrowing the gaps for the organization of issues. And here are some of the sensors. We know of them, like from the smartwatch that takes your heart rate, to how many steps you take in a day, all the way to monitoring the food intake by putting a sensor on your teeth, or at night if you bite down and are grinding your teeth. Maybe a sensor for sweat, if you're sweating profusely, what's that stress level caused by? Also, in wearable technology like shirts for runners, um, foot technology, shoes, where is the pressure of someone's, on their foot? These are all types of things. Also using optical displays and sensory for a vision, that could be used as well. Um, so, we have to mark how our learners are um, using this information and judge the way they do things. So we look at it through the constructivism approach, and how can we fill up? How can we, the person that we're training, what's draining them? What's the lack of motivation? How can we improve the needed training for them? Because ultimately they matter, and we want to make sure that we are um, filling them up with the right information and that can improve them. So looking at the constructivist approach, um, how do we look at this? Well, we review, analysis, plan of action, follow up with instruction when needed, um, and we design the platform for, as an instructional designer, we get the subject matter experts to really narrow in on the information. But what we look at is through the ADDIE model in analysis, designing, development, implementing, and evaluation. So this ADDIE model lays the foundation for environmental workspace or other areas of learning that may result in HPT improvement in a corporate setting. This a specialist would look at the organization's high performance outcomes for success in a holistic manner, and would be looking at the constructivist educational technology platform through an ontological computational program, an educational tool, um, Song and Kidd told us that the central point for developing learning environments grounded in constructivist principles are to provide students with real life application of the subjects under study beyond the classroom, to engage and motivate learners to build expertise while constructing their own knowledge, and to infuse pertinence into the subject under the study that they are doing. So in a corporate setting, that training is vital. Um, so to engage and motivate learners to build expertise while constructing their own knowledge and to infuse pertinence into the subject, um, things like using augmented reality and virtual reality brings things to life in this new day and age where we are at home. If we look at the computer models that are available to help us through educational technology, ontological corporate um, needs, we are we have to scaffold what we have in the approach and the methods. And when using technologies to promote training improvement or job aids in the educational and workspace environment with the employees, educational technology tools may be used to enhance learning or correct bad habits. To do so, an HPT specialist should have a toolbox of educational technology to offer up for the improvement needed, and the discovery of ontological software or tools for HPT specialists is at the forefront of the framework. So research by Chai, Chen, and Hung in 2018 told us learning adaptively in support of flipped learning and ontological problem solving approach. This observes the system and the dynamic of going from a group learning environment to a single learning environment, and what it takes to engage a learner better in an adaptive flipped classroom. Platforms are available, such as massive online open courses, MOOC, like Khan Academy. And it's parlayed the playing field in the world of technology. In other words, adaptive learning systems are now a way of engaging learners online, and it's on their terms, and they can pick and choose when they want to do it. And this saves time for the HPT specialist to pull in e-learning constructs to the skills of an organization's employees who need to learn a skill that may have been overlooked in the job training modules that they were first given. One of the platforms in flipped learning could be through simple delivering instruction online outside of the class time, and moving homework into the classroom. So if we thought about this in the corporate setting, how could we do that and flipping the learning? By reversing the two spaces, flipped learning offers the instructional advantage of the instructor and student interaction, project-based learning, and differentiated teaching. We found that through Sams and Bergman. By definition, active learning in the group learning space is clearly a core part of flipped learning. If we look at learning adaptively, the guideline teaching or active activities and material, or GTM, online, the sources used must be visualized as being embedded into an e-learning platform, so it's best for engaging with the students. This shift of traditional learning to individual design with GTM needs to be built within a platform based on ontological educational design for the organization's improvement. In order to do this, I looked at XAPI, LMS, MOOC, and ET data platforms for corporate settings. One in particular was XAPI, which is a new specification for learning technology that makes it possible to collect data about the wide range of experiences a person has. That data is crucial for HPT specialists in order for them to gather at the front end as well as the rear end evaluation that comes up, and then continuing to train throughout after they have the initial training down. The API captures data in a consistent format about a person or group's activities from many technologies. Very different systems are able to securely communicate by capturing and sharing this stream of activities using XAPI's simple vocabulary. This is through the software RustTC in 2020. The researchers suggest enhancing the tool to make assessment analytics more successful. Nora et al. Show a ontological model for assessment analytics inspired from XPI specifications to lay claim to improving the system. They take out a lot of data from a real MOOC. Then they define a step-by-step process that extracts data from whole learning data. Then they developed a Java semantic web application, changing the data they retrieved to an OWL system file to show their proposed ontological model for assessment and analytics. Looking at other research, one would have to reflect on the computer science behind the ET data information being used throughout an LMS for an organization. This all aligns with educational technology for the HPT specialist. The last area that I looked at was a finite future in corporate learning. We are approaching this new realm of learning and training through looking at the pitfalls of human performance technology within a corporation or organization. And we need to have these platforms designed as we speak and are pushing new things into the future. We look at Rapoi and Komatsu 2020 towards comparative educational research for finite future. They give a narrative on children born today and becoming an adult in 2050 and the 2060s. So we are approaching this generation of users of technologies that we won't even be here to witness what they will be using. So gathering this information, pushing forward in the best analytics for an organization, training for an organization is what we need to do. We see that educational research is divided into empirical and epistemological positions. So we have the first gathers data in empirical and of pre-existing epistemic theoretical lines, looking whether a mass schooling is still needed for students and training, and how there is a need to reorganize the education system. And then the epistemology position, the second position, features comparative commitment. A theory itself is a product of culture. It necessarily deeply embeds particular cultural thoughts. So looking at this paradigm in the future, looking at fundamental categories of educational design and being reframed is a scary thought. not knowing what the future holds as far as seeing resources depleted with the Western view of education. Uh, the education's being outdated. Their research looks at a finite future and the ET needed at the time that we're going through. And human performance technology needs to think in its direction as to build in sociology ET frameworks. They say that learners should not look at themselves as individuals, but as whole society in the way they learn, create, and work. Whether you agree on that or not, human performance technology specialists must follow the science behind predictive future algorithms and outcomes, much like the research to help the instructional designer to transform the ET and learning of tomorrow in the corporate setting. So, coming on the conclusion of traditional learning standards and approaches to design are seeing that they're outdated, and this is a challenge for educational technology, especially with the speed in which information is transforming the way learners do things just simply by using the internet, basic 2.0 web tools. uh, and we need to see these valuable tools that are pushing us forward, such as the AR, VR, wearable technology, and the platforms that are needed for a holistic approach to computational platforms, and thinking about that in the high performance corporate setting. The merit of HPT specialists to plan with new ontological programs, such as LMS or MOOC, educational applications for organizational learning environments, is crucial for the relevance in the field of HPT. The information will establish a base of understanding to update the way subject matter experts think of their curricula and help forge a smoother, stress-free learning environment that will collect data and share data for the organizational learners to move at a pace that best suits them and brings optimized value to the organization. Let's face it, traditional learning is outdated, and this is a challenge for educational technology, especially with the speed in which information is transforming the way learners do things by using the internet. The future understanding of a holistic approach, new computational platforms, and high performance corporate learning settings may occur, and the new educational technology that is used would remarkably benefit instructional designers within the human performance technology field. And here's the references, works cited. I will be happy to share any other information needed. Thank you for listening, and I appreciate you staying with me in this information.